As most of you have likely noticed, we issued a correction to the original media advisory, and we will not be speaking to the Chief Allan Adam today, given the sensitivities of the ASIRT investigation and the importance of not interfering in that process. Deputy Commissioner Zablocki will be providing a statement on his remarks from earlier this week in relation to systemic racism, and then we'll be taking questions. Please note, after the statement, the French translation will be read by our civilian member, Jean Arnoux. During the question periods of the news conference, Mr. Arnoux will be happy to provide any responses in French when asked. Jean?
Bon après-midi, merci de votre présence. Avant de commencer, je tiens à souligner que nous nous trouvons sur le territoire du traité 6, terre traditionnelle et natale de plusieurs peuples autochtones et métis. Je m'appelle Jean Arnoux, je suis stratège en communication bilingue et membre civil de la GRC de l'Alberta. Je traduirai les réponses à vos questions en français au besoin. Le caporal Ron Gumry, agent en relation avec les médias, sera le modérateur de la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui. Comme la plupart d'entre vous ont déjà remarqué, nous avons apporté une correction au premier avis aux médias. Nous ne parlerons pas de l'affaire du chef Adam aujourd'hui à cause des enjeux liés à l'enquête de l'équipe d'intervention de l'Alberta en cas d'incident grave PIAIG et afin de ne pas entraver la procédure. Le sous-commissaire Curtis Zablocki lira sa déclaration, puis répondra à vos questions. Ensuite, je lirai la déclaration du sous-commissaire en français. Plaisir.
Good afternoon. Earlier this week, I made the statement that I did not believe there was systemic racism within the RCMP or Canadian policing. I expressed my belief that racism is found in all aspects of our society, in our institutions, and in our police services. I acknowledged that this was also true of the RCMP. I also indicated that we had a duty to listen closely to our citizens and our communities, and more than ever, we need to understand and to learn, to challenge our assumptions, recognize racism for what it is, and most importantly, hold our employees and organization accountable for racist attitudes and behavior. Since making these statements, I've had conversations with community and Indigenous leaders who are members of my own Commanding Officers Indigenous Advisory Committee, heard from employees of the RCMP, and spoken with colleagues and other police chiefs. Much of that conversation has centered on racism, how it's defined, and what it means to those affected. These have been conversations that have challenged my perceptions and made it clear that systemic racism does exist in the RCMP. My statement earlier this week was not intended to minimize the experiences some people have endured in working with or interacting with the systems and policies of the RCMP. I've also reflected on the fact that my perspective on systemic racism comes from a place of observation rather than experience, and that my understanding of the personal effects of that would not be reflective of lived experiences of those who are racially diverse in their self-identification. When making these statements, the professional, compassionate, diverse, and hardworking employees of the Alberta RCMP were at the front of mind for me. People who work diligently and selflessly to keep citizens safe, police officers and employees who work earnestly with Indigenous and diverse communities to foster environments of understanding, collaboration with open minds. People that I stand behind and support. It's clear there's much work to be done in policing. We need to continue to gain a deeper understanding, to challenge unconscious bias, and to continue pushing our systems and ourselves to ensure inclusivity, balance, respect, and equality in all aspects of our service.
Merci, monsieur. Je lirai maintenant la déclaration du sous-commissaire en français. Plus tôt cette semaine, j'ai déclaré que je ne croyais pas qu'il y avait du racisme systémique à la GRC ou dans le monde policier au Canada. J'ai exprimé ma croyance que l'on trouve du racisme dans tous les aspects de notre société, dans nos institutions et dans nos services de police. J'ai reconnu que la GRC n'y faisait pas exception. J'ai aussi indiqué que notre devoir était d'écouter attentivement nos résidents et nos communautés. Et plus que jamais, nous devons apprendre et comprendre davantage, remettre en question nos idées préconçues, reconnaître le racisme pour ce qu'il est. Et surtout, tenir nos employés et notre organisation responsables de leurs attitudes et leurs comportements racistes. Depuis ma déclaration, j'ai parlé à des leaders communautaires et autochtones qui sont membres de mon propre comité consultatif sur les autochtones. J'ai entendu les témoignages d'employés de la GRC et parlé avec des collègues et d'autres commandants. Ces conversations portaient surtout sur le racisme, sa définition et ce qu'il représente pour ceux qui sont le plus touchés. Ces conversations ont remis les perspectives en doute et ont clairement révélé que le racisme systémique existe bel et bien à la GRC. Ma déclaration plus tôt cette semaine n'avait pas pour but de minimiser les expériences subies par certaines personnes lors de leur travail ou de leurs interactions avec le système et les politiques de la GRC. J'en suis aussi venu à la conclusion que mon opinion sur le racisme systémique se fonde sur l'observation et non sur l'expérience, et que ma compréhension des répercussions du racisme n'est pas le reflet des expériences vécues par ceux qui s'identifient comme étant de races diverses. En faisant ces déclarations, je pensais d'abord aux employés de la GRC de l'Alberta, qui sont l'incarnation du professionnalisme, de la compassion, de la diversité et de la rigueur. Des gens qui s'investissent pleinement pour assurer la sécurité de tous, des policiers et des employés qui travaillent avec dévouement avec les communautés autochtones et culturelles pour créer un environnement collaboratif et ouvert à tous. Des gens qui méritent mon appui. Il est clair que le monde policier doit en faire encore plus. Nous devons mieux comprendre, nous élever contre nos préjugés inconscients et continuer à remettre nos systèmes et nous-mêmes en question pour assurer l'inclusion, l'équilibre et le respect et l'égalité dans tous les aspects de notre service. Merci. Corporal Hunter.
So now open it up for questions. Moving from my left to right. So if you have a question there, prior to your question, there'll be an opportunity for a follow-up too as well. So we can sort of start from this side and go through that.
Hi, Deputy Commissioner. I was wondering why you are coming out with this statement today. Does it have anything to do with the release of a video or the Criminal Trial Lawyers Association calling for your resignation this morning?
No, it has nothing to do with either of those pieces of information. Quite frankly, I've taken this past week. I've asked numerous questions. I've had lots of conversations, as I mentioned, with a variety of people. It's been a week of reflecting, of course. It's been a week of learning and understanding for me when it comes to the conversation around systemic racism and what that means. And I felt compelled to come out and express and communicate my feelings around this as soon as I could. So again, no, it had nothing to do with those other two items that you mentioned. So that's something that we don't have control of when there's a criminal investigation. The video is it's evidentiary, obviously, and becomes part of the court package and relevant to court proceedings. So once that happens, that's not available for us to release.
And if I can get you to state which agency you're from, too, that would be great.
Why did you say in your press release that you were going to comment on the chief, and then you decided not to?
There's not a lot we can say about the chief matter at this time. As you know, the matter is the actions and behaviors of our members are under investigation by the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team, and they're a vital aspect of police oversight and accountability, and we really want to be sure that we don't interfere with the processes that they have in place to do their work.
And when it comes to your comments today, admitting that systemic racism does exist within the RCMP, what kind of changed your mind? If you can give us some examples. You said you spoke to some Indigenous leaders, but what really changed your mind?
For me, it was really getting a better perspective on what systemic racism is. As I'm sure you're aware, there are many types of racism, terms and categories. As I did some research and was Googling it, it just became clear. The multitude of terms, from implicit, explicit bias, unconscious bias, individual racism, systemic racism, structural racism. And I really needed to better understand systemic racism, as I had commented on Monday.
And what now has to be done?
As far as
Moving forward, admitting that there is systemic racism within the police force, what are the next steps?
well, we need to continue to listen to people, to listen to our communities, and work with our communities, and to learn and to understand. We're going to challenge assumptions. We're going to look for positive changes and positive ways to enhance our service delivery. For example, we're just building a reconciliation strategy for the province, for our division here in Alberta. And there's a number of really good initiatives within that, and we're going to use that as a guide and to assist us in moving forward. Yeah, well, I believe it's systemic racism means that, there's racism within policies and procedures and practices that institutions or organizations have, right? And I needed to acknowledge that and recognize that the RCMP historically, we haven't done everything right. We've had bumps along the way in our history, and is it that's resulted in some of these, systemic issues, potentially, but we really need to dig in and dig down into our policies and procedures and just ensure that they're inclusive, that they're equitable, and they're fair to everyone involved. Yeah, I really need to refrain from commenting on that. Again, just around the integrity of the process for ASIRT. So I'm sorry I can't answer that.
What message do you have for visible minorities who maybe have lived their life feeling afraid of this systemic racism? What can you say to them?
Yeah, well, I think I'll start by, acknowledging it certainly wasn't my intent if I offended, visible minorities, Indigenous peoples, with the comment I made on Monday, the position I took. We want everybody to feel that, they're being treated fairly and equitably when they deal with the police, and that the service that we provide to the communities across the province of Alberta and across the country are also fair and equitable, and that no one is harmed offended or harmed in the delivery of those services or interactions with the RCMP.
Can you give us your reaction to the Criminal Trial Lawyers Association saying you should resign? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, I think initially that, I think as I just commented, it was never my intention to minimize anyone's experience or to hurt, racialize, or Indigenous people through my comments. I have personally learned much this week, and I'm completely committed to ensuring that I and the employees of the RCMP in Alberta, continue the necessary work here in the province to eliminate systemic racism.
Can you tell me, I get it, you can't really talk about Chief Adam, but just on average, these ASIRT investigations, they can take up to 2 years. And what is that like, knowing that this could go on for 2 years, kind of hovering over your officers' heads?
Yeah, I mean, any investigation that takes time or lengthy periods of time, I would agree. They do impact officers' well-being. And I know ASIRT works hard at their investigations. They obviously, they know and they recognize the importance of, completing these investigations in a timely way. For the RCMP, we await the results. We ensure that our members, the health and wellness of our members are looked after during that period of time as well.
Thanks for taking my question. One was a little response. You had referenced sort of doing some research on your own and willing to get a broader and better understanding of systemic racism. Do you think that should have been the case? Like, why do you feel you needed to do that on your own? Do you feel that should be included in training for RCMP from the onset? Do you feel there should be changes so that officers don't necessarily have to do that research?
Yeah, you know what? You bring up a really good point, and I think we need to seriously look at that. It would be helpful to be a good understanding for our folks. I know in Depot, our cadets, our recruits, they receive training modules in bias-free policing. So I'm certain that some of that is covered there, but I think it's always of value to be able to reinforce that. As members go along through their policing careers and to have initiatives that continue to create that awareness and education.
And you referenced specific policies and procedures that do have elements of racial bias or prejudice. Can you give an example of something that you've recognized that you've clearly been able to look at and say, this is wrong?
Yeah, I'm not maybe in a position to give you an example there, but I know some of the things that I think we have to have that deeper dive into, right? Some of the areas that we could and should be looking at, for example, our hiring practices, right? So what does that look like? Our training, obviously that's very important as well too. What kind of a training? And we just talked about that with your first question. And then, there's things like, there's a number of processes that we have as a policing organization. We need that structure and we need that process. I think we have to look at all areas, quite frankly.
And if I may, and I know the official was going to speak to the Chief Allan Adam here today, but because that incident, you're addressing systemic racism today, and that incident involves allegations of systemic racism. Just in terms of the video itself and the use of the word reasonable that police officials used to describe the use of force, when you watch that video, specifically around that 7-minute mark where there was what appears to be tackle on the subject, are you comfortable with that period saying this is reasonable?
Again, you're going down the same lane as a couple of the other questions, and I apologize, but I honestly can't walk with you down that road for the reasons that I've indicated. So, thank you.
Can I ask one more? How much training do how much training do RCMP officers receive on average per year for use of force techniques?
I don't know that I can give you an exact number in hours, that kind of thing, but the training, obviously starts at Depot with our recruits and our cadets, and it does carry on through their policing career at different times during their policing career. So unfortunately, I'm not able to give you a real good sense of of what that time frame looks like, you know, as far as a total number of hours there. But it is part of ongoing training that our members get in the field.